this U.S. Senate race in Wisconsin is considered a toss-up. And now you really have to wonder, listen, we've got a lot of bad representatives on the Hill. Ron Johnson he tries very hard to be one of the absolute worst that we have in the country.
And you Floridians have made some major efforts in that regard.
We've got Rick Scott. Rick Scott's number one.
I'm giving you guys credit for making a serious effort, but I'm sorry, Rick Scott, maybe he's crooked, maybe all sorts of other problems like that, but he can't beat Ron Johnson on a good day. Ron Johnson, literally says whatever comes into his head, whatever it is, and it can be a complete scorching lie. And he can be caught on TV telling the lie, and then the next day he will go on, and instead of walking the lie back like any smart politician would, he goes deeper in, right? Because he says, oh man, I'm out on this limb. I'm going all the way. And the fact of the matter is, there's no political figure like Ron Johnson in America. There's a lot of bad players. And I'm not trying to even say he's the worst, because Ron Johnson's so incompetent at times that he doesn't do as much damage as he could. But the fact of the matter is that I don't think there's any question that there are people who got sick from COVID because they listened to their senator run around telling them, about snake oil cures and, fears of vaccines and stuff like that. I don't think there's any question that, January 6th, 2001 was worse because Ron Johnson was holding hearings, looking into quote unquote election fraud. You just run down the list. The guy has done it all. And yet in our evenly divided state of Wisconsin, where the last 6 presidential elections, 4 were decided by under 25,000 votes. So this state is, cut down the middle. That Senate race is going to be close. It will be a close race. And there's no question that a Democrat can win it, but there's also no guarantee. And here's the bottom line. That Dropbox decision, which may make it harder, maybe it makes it harder for 40, 50,000 people to vote, right? People who, that just erects that level of barrier. This Senate race could easily be decided by 40 or 50,000 votes.
Exactly.
So it's a big deal. In fact, I guess the thing of living in Wisconsin at this point is everything's a big deal. Every little thing is a big deal.
And of course, the ballot, the drop boxes are probably a huge factor in the, depressed areas of Milwaukee and probably a handful of others. So this is not a mistake. This is
this is intentional.
This is deliberate. And I think that's something that people need to understand. But here's the little wrinkle that makes it so that the GOP, when they do this, people look at it like, well, why should I care? Because I am sure you're well aware of this terrible, what I call it's a scandal. Let's be honest about it. Matthew Ho, who is the U.S. Senate candidate in the Green Party in North Carolina, listen, I got no love for the Green Party. I think they're a joke. I mean, that just being honest in terms of how they run their party. But Matthew Ho is a great candidate. He is really solid. And, he came on and he gave us the whole rundown. And the fact that Mark Elias is involved in this and the fact that they've got recordings of them lying that they were representatives of the Green Party when in reality they were representatives of the Democratic Party. The GOP cheats the Democrats and the Democrats cheat progressives. I don't think there's much dispute in that. And when a story like this comes around, it's almost like it's the Streisand effect. Whatever your intentions are in terms of thinking that, well, we can't allow them to vote for the Greens because then they won't be voting for us. I never see the GOP do this with the Libertarians. Why is this such a, why do the Democrats feel like they have to move heaven and earth to prevent this guy from being on the Green Party ticket in North Carolina?
So let's get to the heart of the matter. We have seen a diminution of our respect for the basic structures of elections over the last 20 years. And I do trace it back to Florida, to your state, to the 2020 presidential election. I think there was bad stuff before, without a doubt. But that 2020 or 2000 presidential election,
2000.
I apologize. I'm running my numbers bad.
Florida, you can blame Florida for everything in this country, John. You pretty much
not everything. Believe me, there's a few other states. If you've been to Texas, but here's the bottom line. In 2000 in Florida, they basically what the U.S. Supreme Court said is, you know what? If we want a certain result, we'll just find the rules that allow us to get that result. And a lot of people, I wrote a book about it years ago. It was titled Jews for Buchanan. And its argument was that if you believe that George W. Bush was elected president, then you have to believe that elderly garment workers from New York and dedicated trade unionists cast their ballots for Pat Buchanan, a noted, troublesome figure. And of course, it was a lie. But you see, people all bought into that lie. And just as they bought into a whole bunch of other lies, they got so obsessed with Nader running, as a Green candidate who got a lot of votes, and people can get upset about that, but they got so obsessed with that they didn't look, too many people didn't look at the basics of how the ballot count in Florida was a crisis. And clearly the votes were there for Gore. They just did not count them.
What about the fact that there were almost 300,000 registered Democrats that voted for Bush in Florida?
That's my point. So you see, we don't do the deeper nuanced analysis of all of this and find out the reality is that it's much more complex. But what happens, the reason I'm giving that history is only to say that we've now seen develop within both parties. I used to see the Republicans do it to the Libertarians sometimes. But within both parties, we've seen this thing of saying, nope, we got to game the system every way we can, right? We got to rewrite the rules and rip them up, any way that'll give us an advantage. And this is a terrible, terrible message, right? And it's also a terrible, terrible result in America. The fact of the matter is that ballots should have a lot of options on them. They should have a whole list of candidates. You should be able to vote, Green, Libertarian, Vegetarian. There used to be a Vegetarian party. Seriously, back in the 50s. Yeah. Look it up.
The carnivores ate them.
Yeah, they did. They were served up and they did not get a lot of votes, but they were there. And there used to be in America pretty viable and pretty energetic Socialist Labor Party, Socialist Workers Party, Socialist Party, Communist Party. We forget that communists were elected to the New York City Council. Communists were elected as mayor of a small city in northern Minnesota in the 1930s. And all across our political spectrum, we've had all of this in there. And most of it's marginal, right? Most of the third parties don't get very far. But boy, when we start playing the game of saying, you might get some votes that we don't want, that we want, right? So we're going to knock you off the ballot based on that. That never ends well. Because the fact of the matter is, if political operatives start to think that, we can knock off this party because that'll help us in the election, then at the end of the day, when do they stop knocking out parties, right? When do they stop gaming the system so that they win even no matter what happens? And that gets us to right back over to the Republicans who are now talking about legislatures literally canceling out election results and just naming electors, right? So it's an endless cycle. And progressives ought to draw the line. We ought to say, no, we don't accept that. We believe that democracy is important enough that you put all those names on the ballot. If somebody goes out, gets the signatures, qualifies for the ballot, they're on the ballot, and it's a battle of ideas. And I'll give you one final reality here. A ballot with a lot of names on it, if a political party can do one of two things. It can say, I'm going to try and knock that opposition party off the ballot because they might take a few votes from me. Or they can take the best ideas from that party and make them their own. And if you want to, I hear Democrats all the time talk about Franklin Roosevelt, who was not a perfect president, but achieved a lot. Well, in 1932, Norman Thomas was running for president of the United States on the Socialist Party line. He got almost 1 million votes. And the Communist Party was out there as well, and they got 250,000 votes, roughly 250,000 votes. The left did very, very well. And Roosevelt got very, very scared by that reality. And you know what he did? He moved left. He invited Norman Thomas, the socialist candidate, to meet with him before he was sworn in and said, Norm, you got a lot of votes. Tell me some of your ideas. And Norman Thomas was saying stuff like, I don't know, I got an idea for something. We like to call it social security. And so the bottom line is, when you start knocking out third parties, right, and knocking out these alternatives, you end up not just knocking out individuals, you knock out ideas.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.